Got a 2012 Impala in here. It's got an ABS code. It comes and goes. Right now it's working fine. He's also got a complaint that he goes around a corner and he hears some front end clunky noises. I can't find anything wrong with the front end. It's all really tight, but well, with the exception of his wheel bearing, both sides are loose. I don't know, I've never really heard of a wheel bearing making noise going around corners or whatever, over bumps, but maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't see anything else, so I'm going to be doing both front wheel bearings because they're both a little loose, and his brake pads are getting down there, so I'm probably going to just slap some pads in it because his rotors actually look really good. Yeah, with intermittent problems like this too, you know, I can't really diagnose anything, and it's pulling a wheel speed sensor code, and that's in the bearing, so, and it's loose, so I'm just going to do it, see if the code comes back on when he's driving it, and if it does, I'm going to have to look elsewhere for something. It's probably going to be this wheel bearing. Wheel bearings on this are pretty simple. All you're going to need, this is an 1 5/16 socket. It's probably like a 34 millimeter for the axle hub. Then you're going to need like a 13 and a 15, and then the wheel bearings on these, I like to use a 1/2 inch wobble in a 13 millimeter socket. Seems to work the best. Yeah, an extension impact if you got one. You're going to want to unlock the column on this so you can turn the wheel back and forth. You got a connector here for the wheel speed sensor. Just unplug that, and then, well, I guess you're going to need a needle nose pliers for this one. Sometimes they have a metal tab, sometimes they're plastic. You just push in on these and push it through the hole, like so. I'm going to be doing brakes, so I'm going to unload this caliper. I'm also going to do a brake flush. I'm going to change out all his brake fluid. So, I'm going to loosen up his bleeder. I'm going to push all this old brake fluid out as much as I can. You know, if you're not doing brake pads, you can just take out the two 15 millimeters for the caliper support brackets, and just take a caliper with the pads and the support bracket all off at the same time. I'm not going to do that though, because I'm going to slap some pads in here. Now there's a T30 Torx on here too I left out. Got to take that off. And you can get this rotor off. You know, pound this axle in as much as you can. Might be a good idea to put the nut on here so you don't wreck the threads on your axle. Seems to be as far as it's going to go. And you got 3 13 millimeter bolts. Before I go taking these out with an impact too, I like to loosen them up by hand, because once in a while they strip out. You want to make sure you don't strip these things out. Yeah, if you look at the removal and installation procedures on this too, they tell you to take the steering knuckle off. You don't want to do that. If you do, you're going to have to do an alignment and all kinds of stuff. Then there's one more on the other side. Okay, and after you get them 3 bolts out, you just hammer this thing out. This one isn't really rusted. If you get one that is really rusted out, You just need a bigger hammer. Push in this axle, get this wire out of the way. Here's your wheel bearing right there. This particular bearing, it came with a new nut and a metal clip. This one doesn't have a metal clip, it's got a plastic one. So I just got to take this plastic clip off of here. And swap it over. A lot of times they give you both of them in the new one, but it didn't come with this. Yeah, there's just a little tab. You just got to bend that tab right there up out of the way and slide it back. Then put this one back on the same way, like that. Yeah, if there's any rust or anything on here, you're going to want to clean it all up. I'm not going to need to though, because this is a really clean car. When you tighten these up too, you just want to go like a little at a time. You don't want to run them home right away. I always stick my finger in here too and just make sure that wire's up against the hub so it doesn't rub on the axle. It usually never does, but I just do that anyways just to make sure. Just to save an argument, those 3 bolts on the back that I just put on, they're supposed to be about 100 foot-pounds. 96 is what they say. I don't torque them. I just run the things home. And this axle nut's supposed to be 155. And just like most stuff, I just run it home. The thing that makes these kind of wrong is the fact that you have a locking nut on here. So when you just run it down to 155 foot-pounds, or 160, whatever they want it at, that torque reading can be wrong because this nut is already kind of loaded because it takes a certain amount of torque just to turn the nut. What I do is I actually over tighten this nut. I over tighten it because it'll load this bearing. You do the same thing with a tapered wheel bearing when you pack bearings and you do tapered wheel bearings. You over tighten it so you can squish everything together, and then after it's all squished together and over tightened, which it is, you loosen it back up a little bit. And after you put this all together, you can put it on the ground and you can torque this to 155, 160 foot-pounds. I got a torque stick that goes to 140. So I can cheat. And then I'll just go a little more. And that's good. Now that's how I do it. I wouldn't recommend doing the things my way because you're not supposed to. So yeah, it's on there. It's nice. It's going to work just fine. You gotta make sure this rotor's nice and clean on the inside. You want to make sure no flakes of rust fall in between the hub and the rotor. Put it on nice and easy. Yeah, and like the hub too, the 100 pounds, you're supposed to put on them 3 bolts sometimes I have issues with that too, because if you're working on old rusty stuff and you just torque it down, who's to say it's all the way in? Because if there's rust and corrosion and stuff, you want to make sure that sucker is in there. So I just like to use an impact. I just run the dang things in. You do this for enough years, you get the feel for stuff. There. Oh, one more thing. Since this happened to me, I guess I can explain it. Sometimes you take out your wheel bearing and it looks like that. No need to be alarmed. That's just your wheel speed sensor, your inner seal. You just get in here with a pry bar or something and pull this thing out of here. Ugh. Like that. That's your wheel speed sensor in this thing. Okay, bye.